What's up, friends? My friends, how's everybody doing? Thank you for hanging out here. Thanks for chilling with me. It's another time for another YouTube stream. I enjoy doing these. I try to go live at least once a week to keep you folks updated with my thoughts. Of course, I'm doing that twice a week, full market report at Bitcoin Live, and I really, expanded my thoughts there. But I try to put out little tidbits, thoughts on Twitter, of course. But here on YouTube at Cheds Trading, like I said, I try to stream at least once a week. This will go into quick market updates. But even though I only stream once a week, I have brand new videos every day. Hopefully you're enjoying those. Trading Encyclopedia playlist. It's like kind of a newish thing for me. I started it 3-4 months ago. And it's a brand new video every day. I'm trying to teach you like classical charting, Japanese candlestick theory. It's a little bit nerdy. It's a little bit academic, but how big should my watch list be? And things like volume, volume during consolidation, and what's a hammer candle? Walk away after a big loss. Horizontal diagonal trading, how to confirm a move. A lot of cool stuff in here. This is a really great playlist, and I've got videos already planned out. My idea is about 400 or 500 like unique topics, and then I'll kind of redo them after that. But anyway, you're on YouTube. Check it out. Check out all the interviews. I'm doing long form interviews with like smart people in the space. So that's a lot of fun. And of course, I've published, not of course, but I'm proud to say I've published 4 books. Some of you may have those. And thank you. Thank you for all that. But I try to make them free as well. So I've got playlists for each of the individual books. I'm also putting like the trading journal and trading wisdom. I'll have that whole thing free essentially in the encyclopedia. So just check out what I have for you. And just as a quick reminder, of course, I am working with BingX. I've been with them for like 5 or 6 years. It's a great exchange if you're looking for somewhere to trade. So I want to talk about Bitcoin. I want to talk about Ethereum. I want to just touch base with you folks. I know a lot of you people who come to my streams, it's the same folks every time, and I really enjoy seeing you. I really enjoy hearing your thoughts. So, and you folks, you often bring me really interesting, thoughtful questions. And so, if you're shy, whatever, you're shy, it's fine. But if there's something you want to ask, like if you ask that, your question will help some other people, right? So go ahead and ask the question. I'll get to the chat room. We'll let things fill up. Of course, we'll let the chat room fill up. We'll let the stream fill up. But I'll just start in Bitcoin. And we're looking at Bitcoin. I have the daily chart up, but we'll start out with the weekly chart to give you, the high time frame. We'll work our way down. Now, in the weekly chart, clearly it's still quite bullish. Pardon me. How do we determine that? Well, we're really just looking at price here, and look at the MA200 here, and look at the slope, the angle, right, of the MA200. There's a very nice rise to it, 20 degrees. So it's a very strong uptrend. And you have all the like shorter term moving averages, the 8. By the way, you're like want to know what my moving averages are. You just go to the encyclopedia. I have a video that says basically like what are my moving averages. So you can find that all in here. But the idea is you have all the shorter term moving averages are all the way up here. The 8, the 20, the 34, and the 50. It's just reflecting how strong this consolidation has been. And even with the 200 here, you've had these series of moves to the MA50, right? And a lot of this will be repeat, but I just like to kind of set the table, And so if you go back to 2021, if you remember the top in 2021, we had, a couple moves to the MA20, and it held here, and then it started to break down here. So kind of one of the things I've been watching for quite a while is price versus the 50. And back here, I think a lot of market participants kind of gave up. They definitely did back here. If you go back here, a lot of people gave up, but we had a nice lower low sweep and the 50 held. I've just been like staying bullish and, especially at, the weekly 50 until it holds. So going forward, we're going to kind of watch price interaction there in the 50. So we've had this series of moves to the 50 that have allowed for, for higher legs up. The question is, question one is, are we making another move to the 50? Question 2 essentially is, if it's there, do we think it will hold? I think you have to still give, benefit of the doubt to bulls, because if we drift a little bit lower, and I'll kind of, puzzle through this weekly a little bit more, but if we do drift a little bit lower, we still have a lot of support here, the way it's consolidated. Like you have this very nice consolidation range here, this nice little bull flag here, and you have all this structure that's going to make it hard for bears to do any damage quickly. and it creates kind of the right environment for a bounce where you would expect it to bounce, especially if you get to the 50, right? There's other things to talk about though on the weekly, like we have the swing low to watch at 108K. That's notable. Why is it a swing low? Well, we had a consolidation after we did this. You know, you can call it a double top if you want. You don't really, it's not really a double top because again, normally with a double top, you need to move down to a low and move back up to the peak. So you need like price distance in between the peak and trough. You don't really have that here. It's just really one attempt. But you have, arguably double test at least of this range peak, with a minor up thrust. And that's expressed better in the daily. We'll get to that. But it set a short-term peak. It set a low and it found a nice bid and bounced, right? So you have the swing low. And now we have a swing high, another one. We have a lower high. So we're in a falling channel. So it's clearly in a corrective phase, but we're still essentially near primary uptrend mode, right? At the EMA 8, at the MA20. And kind of first momentum clue, right, would be this loss of the swing low. So if you lose a swing low here, I think it's which is 108K, we're much more likely to test the weekly 50, or certainly in that range. There's several schools of thought, right? And there's also the fact that we've gotten here pretty quickly, and we'll drop into lower time frame and look for relief, and we'll kind of try to puzzle that out as well. But we have the weekly picture well above the 200, and testing potentially swing low and watching price versus 50, but still actually quite bullish on the weekly chart. It's just a question of the lower time frames and, classical charting. You dropped to daily, which is a lower time frame in classical charting, right? Daily and 4 hour. Especially, and I generally oscillate, not like an oscillator like RSI, but I move in between the daily 4 hour in the weekly. And if I'm trading, I trade a lot in the 4 hour. If you see my tweets, I put out a lot of like 4H this, 4H that, because it's very good for kind of getting the little twists and turns if you're trading, which is fun. You go to the daily chart, we're breaching the lower Bollinger Band. We've had kind of an upper to lower Bollinger Band move. It can certainly slide down with the lower Bollinger Band, but it's also certainly a level of interest. If you believe, if you're kind of orienting yourself with the higher time frame, my friends, which is the weekly uptrend, you're on watch for potentially a higher low to the 108. I mean, this would be a potential spot for it. It doesn't mean it's, you'd have to even drill down closer, right? Because in the daily, you don't quite see anything yet. Like this candle that's forming isn't really much of anything. I mean, it's the beginnings of a potential tweezer bottom, which is fine. Tweezer being a short-term bullish reversal. I have videos on tweezer in here. You can find it, but I definitely have a video on tweezer. There you go. Tweezer top, tweezer bottom. You can go watch that. But so we have potentially beginnings of a tweezer bottom, and that would be reasonable too. So even though like it feels terrible, everyone's like freaking out and no one wants to touch it. I mean, you can also, it's reasonable to be looking for a higher low to the swing low in the weekly. It's reasonable to be looking for a bid. And so let's just kind of zoom in a little bit in the 4 hour and take a look. All right. Wow. Look, big volume, big volume. You kind of like to see this as a bull, even though you probably best describe this as a bear flag. Remember, a flag doesn't necessarily need to be like rising, right? There's simply put three types of flags: falling flag, flat, and you can even have a rising flag. And I have a video on this, of course, in the Trading Encyclopedia. But very simply, you're looking at probably bear rectangle, bear flag. However, this volume is interesting. There's a volume cluster as well. And what do I mean by volume cluster? Of course, check out the encyclopedia. I have a video on volume cluster. You can just find it in there. And it's the idea that you get the most volume at the top and the bottom. Here we've got a strong, reasonable bear trend that's meeting some counter trend force. That's why we're getting this volume. Some history in this range, and given the weekly picture, reasonable to think there's a chance for a higher low. And even though it's a bearish consolidation structure, right, you can be on watch for a bull break of a bear consolidation pattern, right? So we know, like, for example, you folks are familiar with a descending triangle, right? So you folks know like the pattern site, if you're familiar with that. Hey, what's up, Peter? You folks know the pattern site. One of the best, bears, it's a bearish continuation, right? More aggressive sellers, but you can have a bull break of a descending triangle, and it's actually one of the best performing patterns. So you can have like a bull break of a bearish continuation pattern. So given the volume, given the weekly picture, I think you're watching, maybe taking a long here on a break back over 110. I think that's reasonable. It's reasonable to watch for that. It certainly can fake you out, and you can You can say, hey, Cheds, it didn't work out. And I say, okay, that's reasonable, but it's reasonable to try it. And so if we get a bull break of this bear consolidation, I think it's reasonable to take a long in Bitcoin, right? And so that's kind of based on 4-hour daily and weekly. What's interesting about Ethereum, I started to see some underperformance to Bitcoin. It's starting to roll over here a little bit. You see kind of what's called like a drooping bottom in classical charting. And it's not a drooping bottom like you have a bottoming pattern, but it's the bottom of a top pattern. So you have the price coming up, and I have a video on this, of course. It comes up and it starts to kind of like roll over. And this is like the drooping part, like it's drooping over. It's accelerating, almost like, the opposite, almost like the beginning of a bump and run, but like before like a move down, have the acceleration and kind of just the acceleration of momentum, right? And so you kind of have that look here, right? Trading view. I hate it when it does that. You go to move. So you kind of have that look here, and then you have a kind of loss of local level. So it's just notable. It's interesting on this consolidation that Bitcoin, was outperforming Ethereum. We'll see if that changes. And just on this pair, recapture there. But still, I think, Ethereum, you want to be bullish on it because just very simply put, it's a throwback or a bullish retest. And if you want to know what a throwback is, I have a video on throwbacks. Just, again, the trading encyclopedia. Makes my life easier, your life easier. It's just still very simply a throwback or a bullish retest of this price structure. So you should be watching here for an entry. You could be scaling in. You could be scaling in based on this local structure. You could scale back in even more simply put. I put out a tweet on this where I said something like, like 40-50 recaptures. It's a very simple technique where you have a local range break, a loss of support, a flip back over here looks to be around 480 would be very simple long trade. So you want to be looking for structure because it's bullish. You don't necessarily need to play in there because this is a bear pennant. It can roll over, but very easy long in my estimation if you, flip back over, 4080. So I want to hear from you folks. I've been rambling. There's more to do. There's a lot of charts. We can talk about hype. We can talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. I just want to touch base with the community. Love you guys. What's up, Andrew, Dan, Matej, Carlos? Kunal Sam, Peter, Jeremy, Mohammed, everyone else. Thanks for hanging out, folks. If you something you want to talk about, I'll try to riff on it for you. I'll try to give you some value, how to trade something, how to deal with something, emotional management, whatever it takes. So let me just look for some questions. And this is I don't know what that sound is. This is the point in the program where I look to you folks to continue the conversation. So fire up your questions. Let's see here. Matej, what's up, brother? Matej, can you give your opinion for investors in Bitcoin? So when you say invest, it's different than trading because trading is a situation, and it can be a blurred line, of course, but trading can be where here's a resistance. I'm taking a long because I have a breakout, and if the long fails, I'm out. If you're investing, you might not care because you think like the dollar's devaluing or you just want some crypto exposure, right? Yeah, but when you think about investing, you want to not go daily 4 hour. You got to, I think, weekly, right? You step out and you say, from an investment or DCA standpoint, this is quite bullish. My colleague Axel, who writes the classical charting material for CMT, very rightly pointed out, still very generally just a throwback to an IHNS, inverted head and shoulders. I have a video on that. Continuation. Still, the MA20 hasn't even tagged 34, let alone 50. The thing that's going to give you pause as an investor, and again, you should have an investment thesis. It shouldn't be to a situation where I'm like telling you, what the thesis is, but you'd want to see the 50 hold. So, I mean, that's kind of the investment there. Harry wants to talk about XRP, and for XRP, 275 has been a very important level. Looks like we're right there. So we'll zoom in. We're seeing the weekly chart. Let's go into the daily chart. And it should be rather clear to even the most, beginner technical analyst that you've got a well-defined support level. Now, this is a descending triangle, but you can get a bull break from that, and that probably would give you a pretty good little trade. You can draw your local peak. You can visualize this as a 2-level filter. You don't want to necessarily take a long on a break of the trend line, but if you get back up above, 315, 320, I think you're in good position at least to retest the 350 range. But in the interim, you do have an uptrend that is under consolidation. It's under a little bit of pressure, and it just needs to hold 275 quite clearly. Max says, thanks for your opinion without emotion. I appreciate you. I mean, I have a ton of emotion. I mean, I'm super emotional. I just try to use that in other arenas in my life. I have a quote from Trading Quotes. I said, emotions are great when you're composing music or painting or writing, but they don't help you in trading. And that's the thing. And like, how do you know your emotions? Well, hopefully you're using a trading journal. I happen to know a guy who wrote a book called The Trading Journal, available on Amazon. I'm making the book free for you. Today I was recording the audiobook for Audible. So, but being aware of your emotions will help you. But thanks for the comment. So Captain wants to know about Sol, and Captain says, I think Sol can recover the vector candle around 140. I'm not sure what vector candle means. There's a lot of like terminology that some people use, other people don't use. I mean, I'm still thinking buy the dip here. I think you'd want to look to buy the dip. I mean, look at this lower Bollinger response last time. You very generally have this rising demand trend being tested. Not only that, you can describe this also very generally as a throwback to this prior resistance. I think you're looking for a long here on Sol. And again, the tweezer bottom and any kind of long, it's a very easy stop loss. I mean, your stop loss is going to be on these dual wicks here, which is, whatever these lows are, 190, 195. So if you're thinking, a trade here, there's a pretty good risk to reward, right? Remember in classical charting, I have a video on this, by the way, which is like, what's your profit to stop loss ratio. But the idea, I mean, if you take like a 1-to-3 ratio, right? So essentially, like say it's like 7 is your potential stop loss. You have at least $21 upside. Well, I think it's quite reasonable. So it's a pretty good little long setup. So, I mean, people like, oh, I want 140. There's a lot that has to happen to get all the way down to 140. There's a lot of support here. So I don't necessarily think, I don't think it makes sense to talk about 140 on Sol. Okay. Let's see. Andrew, what's up, brother? Nice to see you. How can anyone be bullish on Bitcoin? What do you mean? How can anyone be bullish on Bitcoin? Open the monthly chart. Well, first of all, the monthly chart is too new, right? Bitcoin does not have, in classical charting, the trends, the blue line, the MA200. We don't even have that on the monthly. But this is still unbelievably bullish on the monthly. What do you mean? How can anyone be bullish? How can anyone be bearish on this? Because of what? This? First of all, tweezer, Andrew, you know what tweezer is? It's a short-term reversal pattern. It might only get you maybe to EMA 8, maybe to like 100K. It doesn't tell you top, and it's just a super duper strong uptrend. I mean, the monthly chart's even more bullish than the weekly. So how can anyone be bullish? What do you mean? Like, how can you not be bullish in this? Right? The upcoming candle looks horrible. Really? It's like an inside bar, Andrew. What are we doing? Like, come on. I know you've followed me a long time. Like, it's not, look, come on. Tweezer top with no follow through. You haven't even really broken below this low. This looks horrible. What are we talking about? And where's the volume on the tweezer? If this is a top, where's the volume, man? Like what, I don't get it. I mean, I've been teaching this stuff for so long. You should be on the same page with me, right? Like this looks great. This looks just fine. I don't understand that. How can anyone be bullish? I'm just blown away by that comment. It's just fascinating to me. All right. Andrew says, again, Andrew, what's up, brother? Can I look at copper? I don't know that if I have copper. I look at silver and gold. Do I have copper? Like what's the symbol for it? I mean, this is crypto. Let's go to here. Let's go to copper futures. Sure. Let's take a look at that. Sure. I don't know that I've ever looked at, I mean, this is mega bullish. Super duper mega bullish. Copper looks great, Andrew. This looks to be pushing higher. It's quite bullish. Any kind of a drop back to 880, you'd want that. I've covered that question. What's up, Kunal? You'd like me to look at Core Weave? Sure. CRWV. USD. Let's go over there to crypto. CRW. No, it's not crypto. That's something else, right? Stocks. Let's go here. CoreWeave. All right. I'm an old man. Sorry, I'm having trouble with the technology. So we don't have a ton of history, which is sad to say. I don't know that you can do TA on this, Kunal. There's no price history. Is it an uptrend? Sure. But we got lower highs, so it's consolidating. And I don't like how this level was lost. And it's just, I don't like the lack of history. So I'm not going to overanalyze the chart. I'll say I don't like it because there's just not a lot of history. Psalm says, happy Friday. What's up, brother? Good to hear you. 4 hour could be potential tower bottom, says Psalm Capital. So Psalm, are we talking about Bitcoin? I mean, there's always a potential like tower. There you go. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. That's absolutely a great call, right? Could this be a tower bottom? You know, a tower bottom could very easily, and in consolidation patterns morph. So what is a tower bottom? I have a video on that in the trading encyclopedia. Where is it? Tower. I mean, I'm not going to, I have hundreds of videos in here now, so I'm not going to search for it. You can just go watch it. And the idea between a tower bottom, you have a move down, doesn't have to be a Maribozu, just a big move down, and then the momentum stalls. You have a series of small bodies. It can be doji, it can be even a medium body, a bunch of little bodies, kind of like what you have here. And then big move up. For a tower bottom, you want it to hit at least the midpoint of the prior candle. So yeah, it very easily could be, very, very easily could be beginnings of a tower bottom. That being said, you're still going to be playing it the same way, where you have, you know, you could zoom into the 1 hour and you could see a very clearly defined local range peak. Local meaning, you know, nearby price action. And by the way, folks, if you want to learn more, you got Bitcoin Live. It's all free in the trading encyclopedia, and you get the in-depth reports at Bitcoin Live. So I definitely recommend. But you get a very, you know, very clearly defined local range peak. So if it's a tower, it's going to break here. You can use that to structure a new trade. Jeremy says, Cheds, man, thanks for all your content. Bud, you rock. Bud, you rock. Sending your best my way. Thank you, man. I'm sending you my best, Jeremy. We looked at copper, H bar. Sure. Let's take a look at H bar. It's been, not great. I mean, this is just not great here. I mean, that's 1H though. Daily, it's just a lot of momentum, right? I think we're back to about the midpoint. Somewhere about the midpoint of this candle, but of this move, but we're getting close to that. And we'll see if it catches a bid here. And you essentially had the double bottom, whether you want to call it a rounding bottom or a double atom. You've got the peak, and it's testing that, but it essentially lost it. So you've got momentum, and the falling channel is kind of the predominant or the in charge force right now. Any kind of bounce has underside tests it's going to deal with. Underside meaning you have support and you bounce, you come back, and you have to deal with resistance, right? Principal polarity. So it's just, there's not a strong trend here. It's sideways at best. I'd be very careful with it. You can certainly see a bounce, but it needs a lot more strength before it gets becomes interesting to me. What's up, Oceanic? Thank you, man. Appreciate you. Hey, Influence, good to see you, man. A couple people asked about Aster, and it looks like Bitcoin will get a little bit of a bounce, so that's good. And again, I mean, we're not surprised to see Bitcoin bouncing. If it does bounce, if it finds a bid here, again, I'll get to Aster, but again, we're not surprised if we get that, given the weekly picture being quite strong, and you have the price approaching the swing low, right around 108K, and then the daily chart, potential tweezer bottom, with potential to form an even higher low from the August low. And you want to, don't be, even if it bounces into a lower high, again, yes, we're in a falling channel, but even if it's a bounce into this range, you're looking for bounces and you want to play them and let it consolidate. Let's take a look at Aster. All right. And then again, problem with this one, not a ton of history, but I know it's super popular. I mean, this is bullish, not a ton of history. It's got support here. It held reasonably on this attempt. You can't really overanalyze this. I have to drop down even lower to like a 1 hour, and you don't even have a 1 hour, MA200. That's a little sus or a little suspect, but you can kind of mark it up if you're trading 1H. We've got support clearly established. You have the price trying to rejoin, the broader trend. You can mark up descending supply trend. You can add a simple 2-level filter break. And I think it's reasonable to even take a long if it breaks back up above, like 205. It's getting close to it, 205 really. 207, yeah, this range here, 206, 207 rather. So you can kind of use a 2-level filter on this. What's up, Daniel? Daniel says, how do you take profit? It's a great trade. So Daniel, I have several videos for you. If you go to my trading encyclopedia, I have a video on profit taking. I also have a video in the Trading Wisdom. And I just assume everyone watched all my stuff. They haven't, of course. If you go to the Trading Wisdom playlist, lesson 9 here, profit taking. So you can just watch that. I have it all for you. But trading journals just got like a ton. this is Trading Wisdom a couple of years ago. It's the same stuff, but I'm redoing it all. So I've got videos in Trading Wisdom. I've got in here scale in and scale out. All that for, you said I don't like measure moves. How would you take profit at 20% compared to 50%? Yeah, just watch that video, Jimmy. It's going to help you out a lot, okay? Talked about Sol. We talked about Aster. Let's see. Give Cheds a few likes. Yeah, likes, whatever. I mean, I don't like... YouTube channel's growing, right? Because of the encyclopedia, but I'm not like streaming every day. I'm trying to have like a balance of life. Doing my own trading, my own work, I have my own personal projects, my family, and stuff I'm doing. So don't worry about it. But if you want to give me a like, it's all good. I'd rather hear a comment. I'd rather like hear back from you. I think that's what's, most interesting to me, when I'm able to interact with you and feel like part of the community and feel like I'm like adding value, which is what I want to do. AVEX, let's see. Yeah, I actually kind of just took a little long. I punted along. It wasn't like a super well thought out, but I just went for it because it's had relative strength. And it looked like it could be setting up, I have my stop loss in this wick. It could be setting up for a little bounce here, first MA20, and I like this volume. So that's 1 hour, of course. But look at this nice long lower shadow candle. You can even use this. You could take, if you're looking for long, you can take a long and a recapture here of these lows right around 28, 29. So influence, absolutely. I think this is reasonable just because it's had some relative strength, and you can use a spring, which would be a very easy way to do it. Captain says I meant 180, not 140 on Solana. That makes more sense. Sure, 180, but there's reason to look for a bounce here. We've got the tweezer, already some decent response. Let's see. GST, good spot to buy or short it to death. What is GST? Is that like GTA, Grand Theft Auto? GST, is that a crypto? I assume you mean. Green Satoshi, you folks play some weird stuff. I've never heard of this. Green Satoshi token. Oh, did you ask me a good spot to buy in this? This is a delete. This is what you do. You see the little button here? You hit delete. This is a play you delete from your watch list and you never look at it again. That's just trash. CRV, I mean, look at this falling channel. It should have caught a bid here. Didn't happen. Should have maybe held here. Maybe it will, right in that 63, 64 cents range. It's not too much of a trend, and it's kind of been a frustrating play. I mean, you are generally testing the rising demand as well. You're generally testing. Let me try to grab that as well. Trading view. Again, I'm getting old, but you're generally testing this rising demand. So maybe there's reason to look at this area. And there's some confluence here of the rising demand and these lows where you want to see it hold. You see how it paused here initially, paused and consolidated before breaking out. So it's been a pretty deep falling channel. Probably given up 2/3 of the move already. I'd be careful with it, but it's reason to look for a long if you think the market's overdue for a little bounce, which I think it might be, and you can kind of manage your risk nearby. I don't love it though. All right, looked at GST. Messy Jane, it's a terrible chart, GST. Don't put $1 and just delete it. It's not even enough strength. You don't short it either. Like if you want to short something, you need a, okay, GST says, let me just look at it again, right? He says, or $10 all-time high, but all-time high doesn't matter. It's at 0004. Like, what does that matter, the all-time high? It doesn't matter. This is just trash. So the only way to short a chart this bad would be a strong bounce. You'd want to see it like double or triple, whatever it is from here to here, whatever that is. You'd want to see it, ride 30% spot, and then you'd short. Like you need a move to fade, right? So you don't just short a downtrend like this, because you could very, look where it is. It could very easily just, mean revert. You want to wait just to the EMA 8 or the 20. You need a bounce to like the upper Bollinger Band. You need a bounce into lost support. Then you can short it, right? But this is absolute garbage. Don't even, just delete. There's no reason to spend another moment on it, and I'm not going to. All right, this has been a lot of fun. This has been a lot of fun, folks. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you folks. I try to answer all your questions. It's just me if I miss questions. Someone said, hey, Cheds, you're always, not this stream, but, you're always ignoring my questions. Well, it's just me. I'll probably miss them. I'm trying my best. But I try to go live here, once a week on YouTube. But I have a ton of educational content. I like to think of myself. And I try to keep you up to date, of course, on Twitter. with what's going on with the market and certain trading opportunities. And I want to give you an idea of the twists and the turns, but I try to make myself like a premier educational, educational guy, right? And so I've got the trading encyclopedia, hundreds of videos. Check it. They're 3-minute videos. This will teach you professional TA. Like if you watch these, you should be able to take CMT1 and do pretty good. Check out the rest of the stuff. Check out the long form interviews. I have some new interviews I'm cooking up. And, all the free versions of my book. And, of course, Bitcoin Live. And, of course, check out BingX, my favorite exchange. Bitcoin, I talked a lot about the weekly picture. And I talked about the idea that even though there's some immediate blood, it's still actually quite bullish. If you look where the price is, look at all these moving averages are in relation to the trend, aka the MA200. So we're well above it. This is still quite bullish. Bears really haven't done much damage. You have the swing low to potentially defend at 108K, and then MA50, right, on the weekly, which will be critical because we've had a series of moves to the MA50 where it's held, and these consolidations have allowed for a new leg up. And we know what happened in 2021, somewhat similar, held, but didn't hold, started to roll over, and then it was at this point at whatever 45K, which I basically said, hey, we're going to 12K. And we went to 15K, which is a pretty good call. So you might see some type of a call like that from me if we break the 50 and do like a false breakout or something. But in the meantime, it still looks quite good, and there's reason to look for a bounce because of how it's dropped pretty quickly in just a number of sessions, just another number of like 3, 4, 5, let's see. In like 8 bars, it's already dropped a pretty good amount. And so there could be some relief here, and you have the potential for a tweezer bottom, and you're putting in context all the time frames. And we talked about the idea of a potential tower bottom, which is currently a bear flag or a bear rectangle if you want from candlestick theory, but you can have a bull break of a bearish consolidation pattern. And it's reasonable to orient yourself to look for that given the larger trend, okay? So that's kind of my thoughts on BTC and Ethereum as well. I mean, we're looking at a very clean retest of the ascending broadening wedge. And if you were 100% convinced it was going to 6,500 or 10K, then you should be looking to buy here. Beautiful chart thus far. You have opportunities to go long if it can take a local recapture. And there's a little bit of a review of some of the things I said earlier. But, you can take a long here in a local recapture as well. So I think you want to orient yourself properly to trade with the trend, and you'll have some good opportunities. I see some more requests, but I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to go have lunch. We're getting pretty long here. It's been a nice little stream. If I missed your comment, I'll stream next time. I'll be back on Friday, maybe Tuesday. Maybe I'll stream Tuesday. We'll see. But it's been fun. I am thankful to you. I appreciate every one of you for being here today. Show some love. Leave me a comment or whatever. Retweet the video when I put it out. But either way, you showing up means a lot to me. And even if you're watching this now, replay it a day later, a week later, a month later, whatever, thank you too. So let's jam out. We have Church of 8 Wheels, my favorite song, intro, outro, and we'll go from there, folks. I hope everyone has just a fantastic weekend. All right, let's do this. Have a great weekend, everybody.